So today's interview is a really interesting one for me. It's refreshing to be talking to a business owner who's in a real business. And I'm going to use air quotes there, obviously, real business. It's not to say that internet marketing businesses aren't real. It's not to say that online businesses aren't real. Obviously, I have an online business. I love it. But it was really interesting for me to be pitched an interview with Danielle Roberts, who's on the podcast today, because she works in the wonderful world of insurance. And for me, it was interesting and refreshing because, don't get me wrong, I don't particularly enjoy insurance sales calls. In the UK, they're not as prevalent as in the US, but when they do get hold of your number, generally they don't ever leave you alone. And so when I got the email through to say that Danielle would love to appear on the podcast, I was kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. Back in the day, I'd worked in the financial services market. I'd specialized in the insurance industry for a little while. And so I was a bit like, oh, that's such an interesting industry. And it was kind of like blast from the past. So in the episode today, we're talking about some of the sales tips and techniques that you can use for products that aren't your own. So if you are somebody who wants to affiliate for other programs or products or services, this will be useful for you. If you're somebody who, is selling products and services that aren't your own, so perhaps you're a sales person for somebody else's business, or even if you are looking at your business and thinking, okay, well, how can I scale it to 8 figures, which is what Danielle has done with her company. She's almost hit that 8-figure mark in an industry that arguably people would say it's very difficult to get passionate about, it's very difficult to be involved with, and that typically salespeople are seen as being super sleazy and gross and pushy. And it's such an interesting conversation. Genuinely, I will admit to taking the mick out of insurance and selling insurance for, a good portion of the episode, but Danielle takes it really well and we have a good giggle about the financial services industry as a whole. But also, more importantly, we talk about the brand values that her company embodies. And definitely a key highlight for me from the conversation, and that I'd love you to listen out for and let me know what you thought, is about how you use brand values as your business grows. So have a listen to the conversation. I really do know that you'll find it really interesting, even if you don't want to sell insurance, but from so many perspectives around building a business to scale to 8 figures, around selling products and services that aren't your own, around embodying your brand values and how they grow with your business, and how actually, you can become a salesperson at any point. It's all incredibly interesting. So enjoy the episode. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on social media or via email, because we all know that I read emails and personally reply to every single one of them. Whereas social media, let's be honest, I am sporadic at best at hanging out over there. So if you enjoy the episode, obviously hit me up on social, let me know. But enjoy the conversation. It really is super interesting. And I feel really privileged to have had Danielle on the show. So poddies, back in the day when, Jess was young, I started out in the kind of financial services world. When I got my first proper corporate job, they put me into financial services right during the recession. I just want to throw that out there, right during the recession. And one of the areas that I was or became responsible for during that time was the insurance market, which was going through a really, really hard time back in sort of 2012, 2013. And so when I discovered that the lovely Danielle, who is joining us today, had specialized in insurance and was taking people to new heights within an industry that I felt really, really reticent about since 2013. I was like, I'm so excited that you're coming on the podcast. So Danielle, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So insurance, let's just talk about that, because I love that we've both kind of gone insurance and laughed. That definitely sums up the majority of people's opinions about the insurance market, because when we think about insurance, we think, health insurance, life insurance,
Yes.
nothing particularly positive. And generally, when you are working in the sales world around insurance, people also go, oh, sleazy, they call you all the time,
Yes.
they never leave you alone. So how did you fall into the insurance industry? How did that happen?
I love this conversation because it's so true that we never go to career day in high school and say, someday I want to be an insurance agent. We all want to be astronauts or scientists or, something exciting out there. Publicity, media jobs, these are all things that are very sexy, but insurance is definitely not one of them.
Mm.
So, unless you have a parent or someone that's in the industry, a lot of people just sort of stumble into the industry. And that's kind of what happened to me. I had worked for about 10 years. Right out of college, I started a job in staffing, temporary staffing. And I quickly rose through the ranks there, eventually was a district operations manager overseeing a bunch of different sites. And the thing about staffing is that the commodity is humans and they're very unreliable. So when you're selling temporary staffing services, you can give someone a job to start the next day and they don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Or, they work for 2 days and then they go and file unemployment. And this is the downside to this particular industry. And so after having done that for about a decade, I was kind of burnt out. I really wanted to work with some other product. And I knew I wanted to go into business for myself. It's something entrepreneurial. We were always entrepreneurial kids, my brother and I wanted to do something on my own. So I was looking for quite some time. It took me a while to find the right opportunity, but a girlfriend of mine went for a group interview at an insurance marketing group. And she was really excited about this opportunity. I really wasn't, but I sort of went with her for moral support and to see if it was an opportunity that she thought she would be able to be good at. And while I was there, I totally got sold on the whole concept of insurance. And I loved the idea that if you were going to offer something, you could have something that was non-perishable. It's not sitting on a shelf and gaining inventory. There's not a huge investment up front, but you are offering something that the public generally needs. If you are a listener of this show or any other, you have some form of insurance in your life. You have auto insurance, you have homeowners insurance, you have health insurance. So pretty much everyone in the world can be a prospect. And I liked that opportunity about it. And I also liked the low startup cost because I was going to quit my job and leap into this new industry and go at it full force. And I liked all of those things about it. So I negotiated with my employer to leave and go part-time. There was a particular piece of that industry that I had handled that I sort of pitched them on. Let me continue doing this for you part-time. This will give me a part-time income while I start my business, and you won't lose all the expertise that I have in this particular area. And they went for it. So they were going to lose me anyway. And they paid me $25,000 a year to stay on handling sort of their workers' comp and those kind of things. And I went out and got myself an insurance license. It's very easy to do. You can take a course that's a couple of days and then you take an exam afterward that's not all that hard. And then you get appointed with carriers and you dive into that exciting world of selling insurance.
And so I love that you've said the exciting world of selling insurance. It's one of those phrases that I'm like, I never thought I'd hear that again. So this is the thing, when people tend to go into new business ventures, we go through a period of being like really excited about it. And, we're excited about the possibilities. We take the qualification, we, get trained, we do all that kind of thing. But the interesting thing about you and the way that you've set this up is that you were excited to sell the product to people. And I think that that's something we don't hear all that often because not everybody is confident to go out there and promote a product or service. And I guess I have two questions. One is obviously, what made you so confident right from the beginning about selling and going out and doing that and talking to people and being passionate about something that arguably most people are not that passionate about. And then secondly, did you think it was easier because you weren't selling your product? Like it wasn't something that you had created?
Sure, those are great questions. I would say that in terms of what made me want to sell, on the one hand, definitely I had learned as a kid that if I knocked on enough doors in my neighborhood and offered to wash people's cars, I could save up money to buy a trampoline, or I could save up money to go to a camp or something that I wanted to do in the summertime. And my parents, kind of entrepreneurial people, my dad always owned his own businesses and kind of taught us that sort of from when we were young. But what I also learned was when I was placing people on jobs in the temporary staffing world, that really was a kind of sale because I was talking to the candidates and selling them on this job opportunity, getting them to accept the job opportunity. And on the flip side, you're also selling to the clients who are looking for the temps and convincing them why your service would be better than the next service to provide people for their business. And so even though it wasn't really hardcore sales, there was a selling aspect to it. And I always got that little bump, that little sense of excitement, hit of endorphins, you might say, whenever you get a yes answer. I loved the connecting of things. And so I thought, this is something I can sell, and I'm going to be selling something that people need. And so I thought it would be an easier sell than say something like selling cars or working for a big corporation and doing business to business sales. I like the idea of finding a product that people already feel kind of uneasy or uneducated about, and then just educating them to make it easier for them to see why the product is necessary in their life. And I knew that I would be able to do that and that I would be good at it. So anything that you can sell that's educational, as to your second question, I think that's why it was easier for me. I didn't have to go out and create a product of my own, didn't have to come up with some sort of internet-based product. And of course, this was back in 2006. So it was kind of before the advent of things like online courses and a lot of those things that we have today. I didn't have a product of my own to offer, but I could sign up with all these different insurance carriers, get appointed with their products, and I could pick and choose the things that I liked. So if you believe strongly in life insurance and you really feel good about that, you're going to feel good about selling that to someone. For us, it was health insurance, which was something at my prior company that I was always very involved in. Which benefits are we rolling out to people? What are the deductibles? What are the co-pays? How do people use this insurance? We would have an annual meeting showing them their options, all the employees their options. And I was in a management role and got involved in all of that. So I even kind of knew a little bit about how to talk to people about that. And I thought, everybody in the world needs health insurance. This is something I can go and do. And I'll be selling them something that they're going to buy anyway. So I really just have to make them see why they should buy it from me. And so if you believe in the product that way, if it's something that you yourself are going to buy or that you yourself have and you understand it, it becomes then so much easier then to sell that to someone else and believe in yourself as a person in terms of getting the point across as to why they need this product and why you're the right person to give it to them.
No, I really like that because we've been having this conversation on the podcast for a while about expertise and actually, educating the consumer and the consumer taking the time to do their own due diligence and things, but also selling things that you believe in, selling things that you're actually good at. And, I don't know that people can be good at insurance, but you can sell a product that you are passionate about and you can represent in the insurance world the companies that you believe really are going to represent the fairest deals to the consumer, right?
Yeah. And you can also, if you're looking for something warm and fuzzy as well, like we all like to sell and make money. And of course, many of us are getting there. But if you want to have something that you sleep good at night about, you can find that here. Like for us, we began selling with group and individual health insurance. And as that was happening, a lot of these business owners would be asking me about their parents. Hey, my mom is turning 65. My dad is turning 65. They're going on Medicare. It's super confusing. It's way more confusing than this product that you just sold me. How can we make it easier? Do you offer these products? And we didn't. And so at that time, I thought, well, let me go and see what this is all about. And sure enough, it's extremely confusing because it's a national health insurance program offered by the federal government. So if you're going to pick any entity in the world to make things more confusing, that's definitely it. And I love the idea of being able to work with people turning 65, educating them about how Medicare works, what it covers, what it doesn't, and then putting things in place that make them sleep well at night because they know that if tomorrow they're hospitalized, their bills are going to be paid. And there's a huge sense of satisfaction in taking something that's overwhelming and confusing for someone else and then explaining it in such a way that you actually see that light bulb go on. You see that recognition and appreciation, the point where they finally get it. That's really rewarding when you know that you've done your job in terms of finally making this easier for them and less intimidating.
And I like that approach to selling because it's simple. It's not designed to confuse the buyer. And it's more importantly, I think sometimes we can get caught up in the sales cycle, especially with industries like insurance or health or anything to do with finances, really. We can feel like traditionally those industries have been used to manipulate people and to kind of coerce them into going and buying a product or a service that they might not even need. They don't want, they don't need. And this is where that kind of traditional sleazy, pushy salesperson mentality comes from. It comes from, these industries that we've both been involved with. But actually, it is all about solving a problem for somebody and saying, okay, well, how can we help you? And then giving that person the best information, the very best information for them, and helping them make that most informed decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because in this particular industry, in the sector that I'm in with Medicare, people have associated this with the insurance agent that shows up on your doorstep, holding a briefcase, wearing a three-piece suit, coming into your home, sitting down and working with you to outline your Medicare products. And that just sounds awful, right? It's absolutely awful. And they're afraid of these people, and they're strangers, and it's a terrible way of doing business, but it's the way that the business was done forever. And so you do have that sort of concept. A lot of the public has this concept of a pushy salesperson. And so I love that challenge of saying, how can we change that? What can we do? What can we bring to the table today to make this completely different for someone, where we walk away from that sales process and they're like, wow, this person really cared. This person really set me up with something that I believe in, that they believe in. And then on the back end, what can you do to service that policy so that that client just feels like they never want to live without you? Because when a bill gets denied, or the doctor miscodes something, or these hiccups that make you have to call an insurance company, which is enough to make your hair fall out and turn white, you want to just, run for the hills, to be able to say, hey, you know what, don't worry about that, call us instead, we'll take care of it. That's really been the challenge. And really in any kind of sales, even if it is an industry where there's that little bit of the impression or perspective that people have that it's a sleazy insurance agent, or they just want to sell me something, take that as a challenge to yourself. What can you do to change that perception? What can you do to be the one person that's different in your industry? And then once you nail that down, stand out with that and make that your thing, so that people are refreshingly surprised when they get done with a transaction or a phone call with you to find that it was nothing like what they feared or expected.
I really like that. I think, I think that's a really, really good way to approach it. And I think it's one of those interesting things I always say we, and I don't really know why. I'm like, maybe I'm multi-personality. I talk to a lot of people on the podcast. I guess I say we because I always include everybody who's listening. I'm like, yeah, we all do it collectively. But I talk to a lot of people on the podcast who sell their own stuff. And so, they're naturally passionate about it. Obviously, they want to educate people about it. It's really interesting for me to talk to somebody who is selling, something that doesn't belong to them necessarily, that, they haven't had to create themselves, in the sense they haven't had to create the product, but yet can be so passionate about making sure that their customers get that best experience. And, one of the things that I really like about your core business values is that stellar client care is a really big issue for you guys. And that's something that you really hold dear to you. So is there a reason behind that, in terms of wanting to subvert the sales industry and again, go down that road? Or is it more about, recognizing that having great customer care ultimately does lead to more business?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little of both, where we decided to make this our main focus, because anyone can say they care about customer service, but so many people would share with me, my last insurance agent just told me to call the member services number, or I need help, I don't want to call a 1-800 number. These are things that you're hearing from your clients, your policyholders, your prospective consumers, and recognizing that as a pain point, we realized if we could establish a customer service team that was a cut above, that was completely different from anything they would get anywhere else in the industry, and then make that our brand, we really felt like we could make a difference. Because you and I both know the worst thing in the world is to have something wrong with an insurance statement. You can see they're charging you for something that you don't think that you owe, or that you don't understand why you owe it. Is this going against my deductible? Is it part of my co-insurance? Most people have absolutely no idea how to read these statements. And so they're very overwhelming. And then the call where you call Medicare or you call an insurance company and you sit on hold for 20 minutes and you get transferred 4 times and you have to keep re-explaining something you didn't understand in the first place. These are all the things that people hate about the industry. So turn that around and make it the best thing ever, where, hey, you don't have to call anyone at all. You call Boomer Benefits and my team here is going to take care of you. Don't worry about that. So if anything goes wrong, if you get a bill that you don't expect, if you're standing at the pharmacy counter and they won't fill your medication on a Friday afternoon and you're going to have to spend the weekend without your prescriptions, these are all the things that you bring to us, and we're going to handle it for you. And of course, there's a cost factor involved there, right? Because I have a whole team full of licensed insurance agents that do nothing but service existing policyholders. So they're not revenue generating team members. But what they do generate is what you said, a little kind of alluding to, is the persistency that you're keeping that client on the books for as long as possible. And then that client is so impressed with the kind of service that you deliver that they're shouting it from the mountaintops. And that's exactly what happens. We have a private Facebook group for people with Medicare questions. And I noticed that when people join and they ask questions, our own policyholders respond and tell them all the reasons why they should sign up for Boomer Benefits to do this for them. And I love that. I love that they're out there feeling good about what they bought. I love that they don't worry about what's going to happen with their coverage or what they're going to owe, because they know they can pick up a phone number and dial a real person that they've spoken with before or that knows who they are, and they're not going to be transferred 100 times, and that we're going to just take away all those, the main pain points that they worry about. This is something that makes the career so rewarding. You know, the money is one thing, and that's lovely. But when I get excited to read the kind of reviews that people put out there, or my team comes and says to me, listen to what this client said today, it made me feel so good, then I'm just, even more satisfied in a career choice because people so genuinely appreciate it. So you've got to kind of find that one thing that sets you apart, that you can kind of stake your claim on and make that part of your brand. And it doesn't even have to be something off the wall, like customer service. Like I said, a lot of people could say we really care about this, but what can you do to make it exemplary, to make it stellar, and then use that as your brand?
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I really do. I think, customers, ultimately, business can't survive without customers anyway, but it's so much easier to retain and upsell existing clients, previous clients, pre-existing clients, than it is to go out and spend money on cold leads, and that is what we're seeing in the internet marketing world so often now, is go and take out Facebook ads, go and do YouTube ads, go and do whatever ads on any platform that's new and looks slightly cheaper than everything else. And actually, if you just treat your customers right, you'll end up with those traditional forms of marketing that make you so much more money so much quicker. You'll end up with referrals, with word of mouth marketing, and with clients who, do go out, like Jay was on the show a few months ago. He talks about these talk triggers. And I think, one of the best talk triggers is to have great customer service, because especially if you're in an industry that doesn't always prioritize their customers, that becomes something that is important and that is valued and that then is talked about and shared regularly, purely because it's so unusual in the industry. So I love that that's something you guys have focused on. I think one of the other things I wanted to touch on that's really interesting about your business, and again, it kind of, business growth fascinates me, how people decide to go from ground up and how they choose to scale their business model. You're not in an internet marketing bubble. And again, it's really refreshing, talking to people who have businesses that are not controlled by whatever next big thing is coming up, the 3-part video series, or the next big funnel, or webinars being dead, or whatever the kind of go-to is at the moment. So you've built this business for just over 10 years?
We just celebrated 14 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 14 years in business in this industry, and you are at the point where you're almost hitting 8 figures with your agency.
Yes, that's right.
How does that make you feel?
It feels amazing. It's funny to look back and see how long it took to get to the first 100K or 200K. Like, that's a long journey. And as you go, it gets faster, of course, because you have more revenue and you invest back into that business. But it just feels also right because it's very steady. So we didn't go from $0 to $1 million overnight, but we've built a super sustainable engine. It's a snowball now, and it just keeps getting bigger, and the growth happens even if we're not actively attempting to make it happen. And so just to know that you put your hands on something in its infancy and you grow it to that level is very exciting. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was sitting in my car outside of my first office that we ever got back in 2005. I think it was toward the end of 2005. And I was getting ready to go in that day. And those first few years in this industry, with not having a substantial amount of cash to invest, we were doing a lot of bootstrapping work. I can remember thinking, when we just have $500 a month coming in, I'm going to feel so legit. Like I'm going to feel like I have a real agency. We've got $500 a month in commissions rolling in. And that, that was my little dream at that moment. And then to see how far we've come from there, where, you know, $500 to spend on something is very much a small to us these days. To know that you've been able to take something and grow it that far just by a consistent effort, it feels really good. It's accomplished and it isn't an overnight success. And sometimes you can be a little attracted by those shiny objects. It can be very tempting to say, go out and create an online course that I could sell to teach other insurance agents how to do this. And I could do all of that, but it's never going to be something that earns me as much money as if I just keep my focus on what's already working. And so that's what we do. You know, we've got something good going on here with our clients. And the more energy and time that we devote into that instead of chasing a bunch of other things is only going to result in continued success, just not for us, but for our employees and our policyholders as well.
I think it's so funny because, you know, niching is one of those things that comes up on the podcast all the time. And it's one of those things that occasionally drives me crazy. And then I'll do, you know, I'll have a bit of a rant about it, usually, you know, on Facebook, because that's typically where, if you're going to have a rant, you may as well pop it on Facebook. That's where everyone cares about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But niching is one of those things. And I think it's so interesting because people are forever saying to me, but, you know, I'm multi-passionate, and I completely get that. I completely, utterly get that everyone has lots of different things that they want to sell. And, you know, that there are always going to be ways out there where you think, oh, I could do this and increase the revenue in my business. And, you know, what we've seen over the last even 5 years that I've been in the online space is this spate of people who, you know, maybe they start out in the health industry or they start out in mindset or something. And then someone comes along and says, oh, you could make a lot more money as a business coach. Did you know that? And so that, you know, overnight they're like, oh, I'm a business coach now and I'm going to set up this course and it's going to be a 12-step system like everybody else. So I love that you've said, you know, ultimately, yes, we could make a lot of money by teaching people how to become successful insurance agents, but we've chosen to stick with that focus. And I love that it's coming from somebody who is at a point where their business is almost at that 8-figure mark, because what we generally hear is this kind of fear, scarcity kind of reasoning around, well, you know, I need to sell to everybody. I need to sell everything to everyone, and that's how I'm going to make all the money. But the reality is it's always the specialists who are the ones who are able to actually monetize successfully and who are able to grow and scale successfully. You know, do you ever get, you know, have you ever felt scared about, you know, what if one day somebody does come up and starts teaching insurance agents how to be better? Have you ever had that completely rational fear?
Oh, of course, you know, because we know that that's something to do. And in fact, in this industry, I know a lot of my competitors, and there are a couple of them that are actually doing that. They're now offering online courses to go and train people to basically be additional competitors. And I've looked at that and I've never regretted the decision that we decided on, just to stick with what we've got, because there's momentum here in this business and it took us a really long time to get there. And so if I was in a position where I was taking that and teaching other agents and essentially out there devoting all my time to that, we would certainly have lag in what's happening here with our core business. And so sometimes you just have to make a choice, and it is so important to pick a niche and niche down as much as you can, because you can't be a jack of all trades. You can't sell everything to anyone. I think it's going to be really hard for you if you spread yourself too thin. And so when I look at the few people that are doing that out there, I feel like I'm glad that it's them and not me. And that I feel good about the decision we made to, like, let's stick with this course. This is what's paying the bills. This is what's allowing us to offer great benefits to our employees. It's what's making our clients happy, and it works. So we're just going to keep doubling down on this thing that works. And sometimes people might try different things or expand, thinking that one line of business or another might close. Like for us, who knows what would happen if national health care comes to America? And could this completely wipe out our business, or could it make our business 7 times more profitable overnight? There's all of those things out there that you could obsess about all the time. But I think a lot of days you just got to come in and focus on the task at hand and say, I'm going to do everything I can today to make this business grow so that we're a little bit bigger tomorrow. And what are the activities that I can put in place here? And keep your blinders on, because you don't want to get attracted to all this too much internet sales and marketing and get distracted from what's really the core of your business. I think if you do that, you risk losing those people that are really loyal to you, these clients that we've had for 10, 12, 15 years almost now, the ones that have stuck with us all those years. I never want them to be disappointed because I have less time for them. So it's important to pick something and run with it and really give it your all.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I love that you've made the decision based on what your customers want and handing back the expertise and ultimately the better benefits to those customers. That's kept your focus. Ultimately, that brand value has really stuck with you through your business, and it's what's taking you to that next level. I love that. So just to round it off, if we have got anyone who's thinking, oh, actually, insurance sales, that doesn't sound as awful as I may have imagined. What's your number one tip if somebody is interested in thinking about either selling insurance or, selling a product that isn't their own? What's your number one tip for that person?
If you're thinking about selling a product that isn't your own, I really think you need to seriously think about the initial investment costs. I think that is one of the largest reasons why we were so successful, why insurance is easy to get into, because people need it. You can get a license for a few $100s and you're not buying a bunch of things to go on a shelf. I would never want to get into like a product business, although I know people are out there doing very well at it and making millions. It's one of the reasons that we chose this industry. So if you're contemplating a leap into selling someone else's product, make sure, number one, that it's a product that you believe in, but also that it's a product that you can handle the startup costs for. Because I've seen a number of businesses over the years that go down when people make too big of an investment up front and they're putting things on the line that are potentially bankrupting for them. And so you've got to be careful that you pick an industry that you can handle. If it takes longer to grow it than you thought, if the climb isn't quite as, if it's not the overnight success that you read about every day online, then are you going to be able to make it through year 1 and 2 and 3? So pick something that you're going to be able to put the effort into and that isn't going to break you tomorrow if it's not an instant success.
I love that. No overnight success stories. It is exactly the right message to preach. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really, really appreciate it. And honestly, you've almost changed my mind about insurance. Like, who knows? If I was not a sales coach, would I be back in insurance? We will never know. Where can people find you? If they want to come and they want to learn more about what you're doing and what you're providing, where can they find you?
Sure. There's a couple great ways to reach us. Of course, you can find my website, boomerbenefits.com, and we're on almost any social media at Boomer Benefits. But I also have a personal site. It's daniellekroberts.com, where we get into a little bit more of the entrepreneurship journey. And so if you want to read more about that, you're welcome to head on over there and connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And guys, if you have enjoyed the episode, please make sure you check out Danielle's websites, both the personal and obviously the Boomer Benefits business one, to find out more about her and her journey into entrepreneurship and what she's up to these days. If you've enjoyed the episode, as always, head over onto social media. LinkedIn is Danielle's preferred platform. So tag us over there. Let us know what your key takeaway was. Let us know if you're now wowed by the world of insurance, just like me, just like Danielle, and countless other people who are out there doing the world a favor by selling it in a non-sleazy way. I will see you in Monday's episode. Danielle, thank you so much for being an epic guest. And guys, I will see you on Monday.